7 criminals who could still be out there today. Crime is an unavoidable byproduct of modern civilization. Wherever there are rules and laws, there will always be individuals who willfully choose to break them and live outside the law. It might be for love, money, lunacy, or just because they're morally reprehensible. So it should come as no surprise that there are many high-profile criminals throughout the world who have never been captured by the authorities. This video will look at 7 offenders that may still be on the loose today. Number 1, the Doodler. Between January 1974 and June 1975, a serial murderer known as the Doodler murdered 5 gay men in San Francisco in a sequence of similar killings. The stab wounds on all 5 guys were identical, and they were all discovered in the Ocean Beach neighborhood. He was dubbed the Doodler because he allegedly sketched his victims before sleeping with them and murdering them. Despite the fact that authorities linked 2 separate assaults on young gay males to the Doodler case, the killings ceased and the investigation was closed. The Golden State Killer was apprehended in 2018 utilizing modern DNA methods, reigniting public interest in 2019. The public was given a digitally aged composite sketch and audio of an anonymous phone call reporting the Doodler's first body, as well as a $100,000 reward for information leading to his arrest or capture. He is, however, still on the loose. Number 2, Akim Zgokyayev. Between September 4 and September 16, 1999, Akim Zgokyayev was suspected of planning the Russian apartment bombings, which resulted in 293 deaths in Moscow and Volgodonsk. Furthermore, these bombs were a crucial reason for Russia's entry into the Second Chechen War. Although the FSB said Saudi-born Chechen terrorist Ibn al-Khattab paid him $500,000 to arrange the assaults, Zgokyayev alleges he was framed by an old buddy who was an FSB official. While Ibn al-Khattab was assassinated by the FSB in 2002, Zgokyayev managed to leave, crossing the Georgian border and probably heading to Turkey. Number 3, the Babysitter. This serial murderer, sometimes known as the Oakland County Child Killer, is suspected of killing at least 4 children in Oakland County, Michigan, between February 1976 and March 1977. 2 boys and 2 girls, all ages 10 to 13, were among the babysitter's 4 known victims, and all went missing outside of their homes. Despite the fact that the police were able to construct a DNA profile of their main offender using samples collected from some of the victims' bodies, they were never able to match it to anybody who was related to the case as a suspect. To this day, the killer's identity is unclear. Number 4, the Canal Pusher. Some in Manchester, England, believe the city has been stalked by a serial murderer known as the Canal Pusher for some years. Between 2008 and 2014, the Greater Manchester Police retrieved 85 bodies from Manchester's canals and rivers, according to the Daily Star Sunday newspaper. While the majority of these deaths were attributable to accidents, there were 28 ongoing instances where the cause of death could not be determined. There was some skepticism about the circumstances of these deaths. The parents and families of individuals rescued from Manchester's rivers have been skeptical of their loved ones' deaths in several instances. Despite this, little progress has been made in determining the Canal Pusher's profile. Number 5, the Freeway Phantom. 6 young black girls were brutally killed in a series of crimes in Washington, D.C., between April 1971 and September 1972. This serial murderer, called the Phantom Freeway by the media, terrorized the public and was never apprehended. Despite receiving numerous calls and mail tips, the police task team set up to investigate the case was unable to identify anyone as the perpetrator of the murders. Each of the 5 victims' bodies was discovered beside the I-295 highway, and the 5th victim, Brenda Woodward, was dressed in a coat with a disturbing letter hidden in the pocket, which read, "This is tantamount to my insensitivity to people, especially women. I will admit the others when you catch me if you can." Freeway Phantom. Many of the case files and notes on the Freeway Phantom have been lost after the final murder. This is due to the Washington, D.C. Police Department's outmoded and unproductive policy of keeping case files solely by detectives who are actively working on the case. That is to say, the case is still unresolved, and the relatives of the 6 victims are in desperate need of consolation and justice. Number 6. Glenn Stewart Godwin. Glenn Stewart Godwin is a notorious criminal with a long and illustrious past. Stewart and an accomplice carried out an armed robbery in which they stabbed a guy 26 times with a butcher knife before placing his body into a vehicle and attempting to blow it up in the desert with homemade explosives. Local people later discovered the corpse in the exploding vehicle, and Godwin was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Godwin attempted to break out of Duell Vocational Institute in 1987, and as a result, he was sent to the maximum security Folsom State Prison. Although this worked in Godwin's favor, as he was able to flee Folsom in June of 1987. Godwin killed a rival cartel member in prison while awaiting extradition to the United States, delaying his extradition long enough to arrange another breakout. Godwin is now suspected of being involved in illegal drug trafficking in Latin America. Number 7. The Zodiac Killer. I couldn't produce a video on the criminals who could still be on the loose without including the Zodiac Killer. Possibly the most well-known serial murderer in history, and certainly the most well-known who has never been apprehended. With his rampage of killings and impenetrable code ciphers that he used to mock the authorities and the public alike, the Zodiac Killer terrorized the United States. The Zodiac Killer, who operated in the San Francisco Bay Area, preyed on well-known lovers' lanes, killing them with a gun or a knife. He went on a killing spree in December 1968 and was last seen in October 1969. Through a series of coded letters written anonymously to both the newspaper and the police after his kills, Zodiac would brag about his work to the press and criticize the police's inability to arrest him. Only one of them has ever been completely and thoroughly decrypted. He was given the moniker the Zodiac Killer as a result of these letters. Even after his murder ceased, the Zodiac Killer continued to write letters to the press throughout the 1970s, pausing for a few years until finishing in 1978. The Zodiac Killer was never caught, despite survivors and witnesses providing authorities with matching descriptions that led to an exact suspect sketching many crack teams deciphering the coded messages and attempting to solve the case. Perhaps, just maybe, he's still out there. When you watch videos about things like this, it's simple to decide that you'll never leave the house again, ever, or, for good measure, unlocking the windows and doors. But keep in mind that, as frightening as the world may be, you're still far more likely to be a drunk driver than a criminal on the loose.